Hello and welcome to this new video. So today I would really like to talk about some of the books that I am planning on reading this year in 2025. So my TBR list is forever growing and changing. So by no means is this the only books that I have planned for 2025, obviously, but these are some of the things that I definitely want to get to before the end of this year. So I have three categories: books that I want to read and already own, books that I want to read and don't own, and then books that I want to reread. And I talked a bit about rereading books in my 5-star reading journal setup video. I enjoy rereading books. I think there's a lot of value in rereading books. So this year there is quite an extensive list of books that I want to reread compared to what I normally do. So we'll start with books that I want to read and already own, because honestly, there's two books on that list. So the first one is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. So I recently as in several weeks ago at this point, watched Mansfield Park, and I really enjoyed the movie, and it made me want to pick up the book. So I bought the book. This is about a young girl named Fanny Price who is poor, but she is living at Mansfield Park, the home of her wealthy uncle. And it says, this is Jane Austen's profound, troubling third novel, her most complex work, a powerful portrayal of change and continuity, scandalous misdemeanors, and true integrity. So I remember the movie being very dramatic. I really enjoyed the movie, so I figured I would read the book. And then the next book that I want to read this year is actually this right here. So this is The Lady of the Camellias. And guess what? Look at the author title. This is by Alexander Dumas' son. Oh my gosh. I know nothing about this book, but this is Alexander Dumas' son, who was also named Alexander Dumas. And I pretty much just immediately bought this when I saw it because you never see stuff from his son. I believe his son was more of a playwright than an author. Dumas also wrote plays, but I think he obviously is more known for his novels. But his son, I believe, was more of a playwright than his father. And his father is so famous, you know, that you never hear about his son or see his son's works. So I saw this in Barnes & Noble of all places, which was just shocking to me because whenever I go to Barnes & Noble, I see maybe one Alexander Dumas, which is usually the Count of Monte Cristo. Justice for Alexander Dumas. We need more Alexander Dumas representation in bookstores. Anyway, I saw this from his son and I was just shocked. I was like, excuse me, what is this? Realized it's his son, and so pretty much didn't care what it was about and bought it. But the back says, The Lady of the Camellias, because she is never seen without her favorite flowers. She is the most beautiful, brazen, and expensive courtesan in all Paris. But despite having many lovers, she has never really loved until she meets Armand Duval, young, handsome, and hopelessly in love with her. Sounds great. Alexander Dumas' son. Obviously I have not read everything from Alexander Dumas, but I've read a lot of Alexander Dumas. And now, after this, I can say I've read something from his son. So the more you know. Very exciting. And now let's move on to books that I want to read but do not own yet. I really want to read It this year. Maybe this is incorrect, but I believe it's one of Stephen King's most famous books, on obviously movie, and I've heard it's actually really good. I feel like I don't need to tell you what it is about because it's pretty widely known, but I've never read it, nor have I seen the movies. So, to be honest, could I tell you what it's about? I would just say there's a clown haunting a sewer in a neighborhood. Have I seen the movie now that I think about it? I don't think so. But it says that it is about teenagers who stumble upon the clown haunting the sewers in their town. So they were first kids when they first came across it, but I believe the book is actually about several years later when they're grown up and they are somehow drawn back to their neighborhood and get re-involved with this clown that's haunting them. That might be an extremely vague description of a very well-known story, but like I said, I haven't read it or watched the movies, but I do want to read it because I actually have heard that the book is actually really good. Granted, it is 1,100 pages, which is a hefty boy, but I'm no stranger to hefty books, so I'm kind of excited to read it and feel like, since I love to read and I also like scary stories, I feel like I kind of almost have to read it. Like, I feel like it'd be weird if I didn't read it. And I also think it's weird that it's taken me this long to even have it on my TBR. I see it every time I go to the bookstore. I see it, I look at it, and I think about it, but I don't buy it. And I know I could just like check it out from the library, and I might do that. But yeah, I'm actually more surprised at how long it's taken me to like actively put it on my TBR. Next up is, I think I'm gonna put the Throne of Glass series on my TBR. Well, just the first one to start with. In 2024, I did read the ACOTAR series. I did vlog that whole experience, and I loved it. And with that, I also threw on the House of Earth and Blood, which is the first book in the Crescent City series, which is, I believe it's a trilogy, which is also Sarah J. Maas. And I'm just still going back and forth on whether or not to just fully send this Sarah J. Maas arc in my life, because I know there are a lot of people very passionate about those books and love them very much, and I really did like ACOTAR, so I probably will like the other ones as well. So I am putting that on my TBR for this year. But at the same time, it's like, do I want to do that to myself? Like, ACOTAR nearly killed me. Like, I couldn't do anything else for a month while I was reading every single book. So like, do I really want to do this to myself? I don't know, but I did put them on my TBR. And then the last book on my TBR that I don't own that I'm interested in is a book called Strange the Dreamer. This book was recommended to me by a friend. I think it's a duology. I really don't know much about it, but it did sound very intriguing. And I have gotten into fantasy. Like, I don't want to say I am a fantasy girly now. Last year, according to my 2024 wrap-up video, fantasy was my highest read genre, which is very new for me. And so I'm getting into fantasy, and this is a fantasy book, so I figured I would give it a go. I'm less scared of fantasy now. This book says it's about the dream chooses the dreamer, not the other way around. And Laszlo Strange, war orphan and junior librarian, has always feared that his dream chose poorly. Since he was 5 years old, he's been obsessed with the mythic lost city of Weep, but it would take someone bolder than he to cross half into the world in search of it. Then a stunning opportunity presents itself in the person of a hero called the Godslayer and a band of legendary warriors. I'm gonna stop right there because that's probably enough. I'm down to give it a shot. I love when people give me recommendations. I'm like, oh, immediately on the TBR. So yeah, I'm excited for that one. And then the last category of my TBR was the rereads category. I think every time you read something, you get more out of it, because the first time you read it, maybe you're just gathering the main points, the main things, and then every time you read it, you're getting more and more out of the story and how it was constructed and the character building. So I love rereading things. So I have a handful of books that I want to reread this year. Let's just get this over with, because I talk about Dumas too much. Let's just get it over with. I want to reread The Count of Monte Cristo. So this is a hefty boy. This I've already read. I read it I think 2 years ago at this point. Kind of the reason I want to reread this book is because I just watched this new movie release of it, which was absolutely incredible. Not joking, one of the best movies I've ever seen. So it kind of re-sparked my love for The Count of Monte Cristo, and then a book that I really want to reread that I've only read once, and I really want to reread it because I'm thinking I want to put it in my 5-star reading journal. I read Little Women in 2021, so it's crazy how long it's been since I first read this book, but I remember really liking it. But it's been almost 4 years now, which is just crazy how fast time goes. This is one of the books that I first read when I really started to get into reading and decided that I was going to make reading a part of my personality. No, that I decided that I wanted to like really develop a habit of reading and really get into reading, especially classics. So this was one of the first books that I read. So Little Women is about 4 sisters living in England during the Civil War, and it's really just a story about them growing up and a coming of age, 4 sisters that really love each other and learn how to grow up and be women together. And I just remember it being really heartwarming and beautiful. So I would like to reread this year. And then kind of in the same vein, I want to reread Jane Eyre. Again, I've only read this once, and it was in 2022, which is wild to me that it's been 2 years since I read this book. It's a contender for going in my 5-star reading journal. So going to be rereading Jane Eyre. So this book is basically about Jane Eyre, and it says, Jane Eyre dazzled and shocked readers with its passionate depiction of a woman's search for equality and freedom on her own terms. Its heroine, Jane, endures loneliness and cruelty in the home of her heartless aunt and the cold charity of Lowood School. Her natural independence and spirit prove necessary when she takes a position as governess at Thornfield Hall, but when she finds love with her sardonic employer, Rochester, the discovery of a shameful secret forces her to make a terrible choice. Very dramatic, but very interesting. And then, last but not least, I will be rereading, oh my word, the Cormoran Strike series. Now, this is missing one book. This is missing the second book. My mother currently has the second book. First book, The Cuckoo's Calling. So I want to reread this series because I love it so much. Like I die a little bit on the inside when I think about this series. Amazing news came out last month, I believe, that the 8th book is going to be released in September of 2025. And that is a long way to wait. By the time the 8th book is released, it will have been 2 years since I read the 7th book, which is just crazy that I've been waiting that long for the 8th book. Like, I don't know how I've been waiting that long, because the way the 7th book ended nearly took me out. The fact that life has moved on and I've been able to live for these 2 years while I've been waiting for the 8th book to come out is crazy to me. Life finds a way. But yeah, so I'm planning on rereading these books slowly up until September in anticipation of the 8th book release, to get hype for the next book, which is The Hallmarked Man, which we still don't have a cover release for, I believe. So be on the lookout for a little reading vlog of the Strike series in case you're interested. So very exciting, very exciting. That is all of the books on my TBR currently. Like I said, the TBR list is forever growing and changing, but that is what the plan is for 2025 right now. If you have any thoughts on any of the books I talked about, or if you have any recommendations for me to check out this coming year, I love book recommendations. Let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe to see more book content coming in 2025. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you later. Bye!